Greetings, televiewers, and welcome to this fresh edition of The Agenda live on My Media Prime Television. On today's edition of the program, we are receiving former detainees of CRM political party of Professor Maurice Kamto in the person of Evangelist Sir Mutaga Sivanus Tifu, who spent up to over 2 years in prison at the Konige Maximum Security Prison. He was arrested and taken to Yaoundé. We shall be digging several layers beneath the circumstances surrounding his arrest and the number of years he spent in prison. He will be telling us his experience, how he lived the prison life at the Konigi Maximum Security Prison for over 2 years. He was discharged and acquitted by the Fundi High Court. That was on the 19th of December 2020, and he is back, and he will be with us in the studio. I'll be right back after this. Sir Mutaga Sivanus Tifu, thank you so much for honoring our invitation to be part of this edition of the program. We are very happy to welcome you after 2 years. You spent 2 years in prison, and we are glad you are here. This is the very first time you are coming on this platform. It is always our, first time you come to the program, viewers would like to know more about you and know the caliber of politician that you are, with a second cap as an evangelist.
Thank you, Mr. Lasha Kingsley. My name is Evangelist Sir Mutaga Sivanus Tifu, former First National Vice President of PADEC of Mr. Jean de Dieu Momo, who is presently Minister Delegate in the Ministry of Justice. I resigned from PADEC political party on the 31st of July 2018 to join Professor Maurice Kamto at the eve of the 2018 presidential elections. And I want to say this with a lot of boldness, that there are real Cameroonians like us that can stand the test of time and maybe prove to everyone that we didn't enter into politics as those who look at it as a source of avarice, but with a genuine will to effect change in our country. So I was arrested on the 28th of January 2019 after my passage on the local TV channel, that is Equinox TV. News came to me that Professor Maurice Kamto was at Honorable Ambazonian's residence. So I had to pass there to find out what was really going on, because those who brought the news to me told me that he was being molested by police officers and other forces of law and others. So as I reached there, at about 7 p.m., we had police officers who came there. That's the commissioner of the Bonanjo Special Branch. The judicial police came there with a search warrant, which they later transformed it into an arrest warrant. So many of us who were there were arrested, taken to Bonanjo.
Why were you arrested? Did you stage any kind of protest?
There wasn't any protest.
You went to see your president and you were arrested along the president of your party?
Yes, that's the gospel truth. From what I gathered, I asked the commissioner that came that night with the search warrant where he was taking us to. He told us that he was taking all of us who were there to the judicial police in Bonanjo for identifications, and that after due identifications we were to be allowed.
You never had with you your identity card?
I had my identity card. Not that time I had, but the certificate of lost, because in 2018 Barrister Ndoki and I launched a protest march in Douala that we were contesting the elections, the results of the presidential elections. So the preliminary results that were published by the ELECAM. So we staged a protest march in Douala that we were contesting the results. So we arrested. During that day, I lost my national identity card on the 27th of October 2018. So what I had on that day with me was my certificate of lost. So they took most of us to the judicial police. After due identification, we only heard a call on walkie-talkie asking the the regional delegate for security in the littoral, whether he had adequate logistics to carry us, to transport us to Yaoundé. So that's what happened. So we were transferred to Yaoundé at gunpoint.
The very night? Or
the very night. The night that was on.
What were they telling you guys when they were moving with you?
So they told us.
Where were they taking you guys to?
Nobody knew where we were going to. Because at every instance that we asked them what was going on, I think the police officers who were kind enough, because they were given strict orders not to communicate with us. Some who were kind enough would tell us that they are taking us to where we will be highly secure, that it is for our security. So that's how they bonded us up in a 70-seater. Professor Maurice Kamto was in a pickup with the special advisor, former special advisor to President Probia, that is
Christian Pendai-Koka,
and Honorable Abed Zongang, and other members. So that's how we're taken. The drivers that drove that night, they drove us recklessly. So at every point that most of us that were inside, some who just left their workplaces and needed rest.
Were your family members or any of your lawyers notified? You were about where they were taking you guys to?
Nobody was notified where they were taking us to. So at every instance on the way that we wanted to maybe urinate or maybe ease ourselves, they would tell us they cannot stop. They drove restlessly right to Yaoundé. On the way, some of us were seriously praying because we didn't know where they were taking us to. With such heavy militarization, that's like, how can I put it, with the security, heavy security that was mounted, because you find police officers that were dressed in white, in black, I mean. They didn't want to smile. It was like people were going to a war front, a very dangerous war front where there will be a conventional confrontation. That's how they drove us to Yaoundé. On the next morning, that was on the 29th of January, to my greatest dismay, I found out that we were in Yaoundé at the Special Police Branch, which is called GSO.
What were the conditions of detention there?
The conditions of detention at the Special Police Branch in Yaoundé were quite horrible, very, very horrible, because we were placed underground, in the underground cells. In the underground cells, you could only have electricity. There are times that they would be blacked out. So we had to be underground cells with women, because there were about 40-something women that were with us that day. During that period, we stayed at the GSO for over 1 week, 6 days. It was now on the 11th of February 2019.
Yes.
February 2019, that they brought justification for arrest that were signed by the government commissioner. So when they came, they told us, no, it was around the 6th of February, 6, 7, 8, something like that. I cannot really record it well. So when they came, they interviewed us without our lawyers. Most were interviewed without our lawyers. Though
at that time, were your family members already informed or alerted? Did they know your whereabouts at this point?
My wife came in contact with my actual position only through information that came to her as rumor, because then, I used to be part of the panelist of the panel of debate on Afrique Media TV. So it was Regina Sondo who published it on her page, Facebook page, that some of us were arrested and that they don't even know our whereabouts. So my wife, who had been lamenting for a week, could only have in mind that we were under police custody. She didn't know exactly where we were. So as we stayed there, it was on the 11th of February that we started asking ourselves why we should be in Yaoundé at the Special Police Branch for almost 2 weeks without any lawyer coming to assist us and all the like. So on the 12th of February, we were transferred now to the military court. We were transferred to the military court. We had to be at the military court.
Without any lawyer?
Without any lawyer. No, then some lawyers came. Okay. Honestly speaking, some lawyers came, because then I had the Secretary General of the...
What were the charges? What were the charges being brought forth against you guys at that point?
No, during that point at the GSO, the Special Police Branch, we did not have any clearly identified charges against us. The charges were read to us at the military court in Yaoundé. That was on the 13th, breaking 14th of February, because we were at the military court in Yaoundé. They told us they charged us for contempt of the President of the Republic. They were charging us for destruction of public and private properties. And then they were charging us maybe in connection with the destruction of the Cameroon embassies in Paris and in Berlin. So you can imagine it, how diabolic it is, because most of us who were arrested in Douala, some, imagine it, were just passerbys who left their workplaces and were returning back home. By mere curiosity, as they heard that Kamto was at Honorable Ambazonian's place, they wanted to go there and really have first-class information. That's how they had to bundle them up with us. I take example, one guy, they call him Chomsen Fuadjo Felicien, was the electrician of Ambazonian.
Yes.
And then the house help of Ambazonian too, and the daughter of Honorable Ambazonian too was arrested during that night and transported to Yaoundé. But then the daughter of Honorable Ambazonian and the driver, they were finally released at the military court on bail. So most of us, they asked me at the military court to pay the sum of 100,000 francs to bail myself. I told them I cannot pay that sum of money because then I was Professor Maurice Kamto's National Deputy Team Press Officer.
Yes.
So I would not pay that amount of money while my boss will be transferred to Kondengi. It's better I go to Kondengi with him. When they'll be releasing, they'll release everybody. So that's how we were bundled to the Kondengi Central Prison on Lovers Day.
You said in the course of the conversation that you were ferried alongside some women. What were the conditions of detention? Were the women in a separate room? How were the women treated and the men during the detention? And even at the level of the military tribunal, were you guys all taken to the military court? Or were they taken to other courts, not the military court?
Mr. Lasha Kingsley, with a lot of audacity, temerity, jurisdictional knowledge, frank at the way these women were treated with us at the GSO, the Special Police Branch, because all of us were kept in one room. You can imagine it. It was after 4-6 days that we riot. We asked the commissioner of the Special Police Branch that we cannot be spending the same night with women in the same room, before they had to come and transfer them to a room that was closer. But then, as I told you, at the Special Police Branch in Yaoundé, women and men were bedding in open air alike. That's in the night. They would take people out, and then you'll be bedding with police officers there pointing guns at you. So images of some women nakedness had to filter into social media. We saw them later. So you can imagine that the women were poorly treated. They did not respect the human right at the Special Police Branch.
We are at the military court. So what happened at the military court on the 19th, as you are explaining? From the military court, where were you guys taken to?
Yes, at the military court, that was on the 13 over 14 of February.
Yes.
So Professor Kamto, Honorable Ambazonian, Christian Penda Ekoka, and one other militant of the party, and five of them. You have this guy of Penja,
yes,
former
the current mayor of Penja.
They call him. Forgotten his name. So we were taken. Yes, we were taken from there. We're taken from they were the first that they had to place on a waiting trial. So they took Professor Maurice Kamto, Ambazonian, and Christian Pendakoka, and 2 others to the principal prison on the 13th of February. Meanwhile, the rest of us were transferred to the Kondengi Central Prison on Lovers Day. You could see women lamenting Valentine's Day, because some of them had the appointment. Some who were not married, there are times women who are not married may have their boyfriends and all that. Even those who were married, they had surely programs with their husband that they needed to go out on Valentine's Day. So you saw them lamenting. So they had to bundle us into the Kondengi Central Prison. That's how we were bundled into the Kondengi Central Prison on the 14th of February.
Okay, at the Kondengi Central Prison, what were the conditions of detention? How often were you guys taken to court?
Mr. Lasha Kingsley, we stayed at the Kondinge Central Prison for 6 months because our awaiting trial was for 6 months. That's what they call in French mandat de dépôt provisoire.
Yes.
So
renewable.
it was supposed to be renewed twice.
Yes.
Yes, no, twice. First time, second time. That will make it. You have to spend 18 months in prison.
Yes.
After 18 months in prison, it will be judgment. So we were dropped as we were placed on a waiting trial in Kondingi. Our lawyers filed in for this thing for unconditional release, which is known as habeas corpus.
Yes.
Unconditional release. And I want to tell you that among the over 300 case files that were submitted for unconditional release, none of it prospered. You can imagine it. That's what I told you, that justice in Cameroon is not, the justice system is not free. It is still being commanded by the executive, because you cannot tell me that over 300 to 500 case files that were deposited at the Court of Appeal for habeas corpus at the High Court in Fundi, none of it did prosper. It is only when before the presidential clemency,
during the major national dialogue.
Yes, before the presidential clemency that came up on the 4th of October, it was the military court that had to investigate. The military court, I don't know what kind of criteria they used, they had to investigate, and then came up that following investigations, they have found that 39 of us were not highly implicated in all the charges that were leveled against us.
Arresting a civilian at the residence of a civilian without any weapons, and judging the civilian at the military court. What links?
You see, in Cameroon, once you are an opposition leader or a militant of an opposition party, especially a party that is posing a lot of threat to the regime in place, they would have to go extra miles, maybe to paint you black. You know, they say before you want to kill a dog, give it a bad name. So they had to do everything possible to charge us for contempt of the President of the Republic. They said we rebellion against the state, destruction of, as I told you, there were about 16 charges. So these people, simply because during that time, Professor Maurice Kamto and the Cameroon Renaissance movement were bent on a recount of the elections. So the regime in place saw it as a threat, knowing that the elections were actually rigged. Permit me say so. I know you would not buy, because they would have.
We are talking about institutions.
Yes, they would have to.
Place, and you guys defended the election results at the level of the Constitutional Council, and you failed. You were defeated. So.
Honestly, we will come back to this next time.
Okay, let's focus
because if
now.
we did not fail, because they had to go. If they went into for recount and prove us wrong, we would have accepted.
Okay, how would you rate the treatment that was given to you at the prison? Are there still some good grains of Cameroonian officials?
Honestly speaking,
time being that you spent in prison.
Honestly speaking, I can remember the story of Jeremiah in the Bible, the prophet that was thrown in the pit. As he was about to die there, there was one Ethiopian eunuch. They called him Ebedemelech, who went and met the king and told the king that no, the prophet Jeremiah is not supposed to die in prison. So in the pit, they have to remove him. If not, he will die. So there was a guy in the prison, and that guy still, I hold him in high esteem. He's a prison warder. They call him Mark. So Mark is one of those, he was one of those warders that went and tried to intervene on my behalf. He told them, the superintendent of the police and all other constituted cops that were there that night, that Mutaga cannot be part and would never be part of such a riot in the prison, because this is the guy we met in the afternoon and pleaded with him to try to calm down the guys, and he did his best. So he tried. So the only thing that happened that night is that the gendarmes who came and even the other uniformed men, they had a lot of grievances. They said the warders could not master the situation, that if they could have mastered the situation, they would not have come in for reinforcement. So when Marx was talking to them, they couldn't listen to him, because Marx tried to defend me. So that's how it happened. I was as I was transferred to the Special Police Branch, I stayed at the Special Police Branch for over 2 weeks with Ngalin Felix, with Penn Terence, with Mancho BBC, with other Anglophones who were in the prison at the Special Police Branch. Now we're transferred to the Ekunu Court of First Instance on the 28th of August. That is 2019.
Yes.
At the Court of First Instance, the Ekunu Court of First Instance, it was like a Kafkain kind of justice, because during that time, militants of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, to whom I'm part, we had audiences at the hearings at the Court of Appeal. We were appealing on the competence of the military tribunal to
judge civilians.
So the day they were supposed to judge me at the Court of First Instance in Ekunu, in complicity or in connection with the mutiny in Konengi, I didn't appear. So they had to sentence me in my absence. I only had to reach there when they were reading the final decision. So the judge who judged us that time, Wan Gomba, lied in our files that we appeared in court and we refused to answer. And the most ironical, or let's say funny thing, was that it was only the case file in which Mutaga was part of it. So when I met Professor Maurice Kamto and other people, they told me that there must be the heavy hand of the devil behind that your case file. And we're asking ourselves who the devil should be. Is it the devil?
Interestingly, let's now talk about this the new CAP evangelist. How did this come about? This evangelist, you are leaving the prison and you left the prison now as an evangelist.
Honestly speaking,
and you are now preaching the word of God. Yes,
I want to thank God Almighty because.
Is it a prison that changed you, or you had always have that call of, ministering to people?
Honestly speaking, I received the calling that was in 2009. I thought that it was just one of those talkative priests that just wanted to maybe say things about me for his self-aggrandizement. So some years later, that was in 2011, because 2011, after I was Jean de Dieu's Momo spokesperson and deputy campaign manager in 2011, I came back. One pastor, Fongang Magloire, then of the Apostolic Church, told me, gentlemen, you should know that aside politics, you need to preach the gospel. So they programmed me for this thing, Bible's lessons, that I should teach lessons in church, but I've not fully accepted to be part of this. That day, I had to rush to Bamenda for my different businesses in Bamenda. I want to tell you, on the way, I was robbed by thieves. They almost killed me on the way. So when I came back, I still did not understand. In 2016, something like that, somebody else told me. So, honestly speaking, where I decided to engage full ministry is in prison, because in 2000, when I entered the prison, like I told you, I studied the prison. Maybe God, the very first book I bought in prison was a Bible. I bought the King James versions of the Bible. Bought it 20,000 francs. Asked for it. They gave me. I was studying in the prison. So God used me so extraordinarily in the prison, because many things that used to happen before they actually get materialized, God will show them to me in visions and sometimes in dreams. So there was a time in the prison in which God has shown to me that President Biya was going to give this thing clemency, kind of a clemency, that's a reduction to prisoners. They will reduce prison terms and all like. So I was in the same cell with one young guy. They used to call him Gaigang Eric. So then he came in the prison for another matter. He told me they are praying that December 2019, President Biya would give them a clemency. I told them that the Spirit of the Lord is ministering to me that clemency will only come in April. I don't think it will even meet me here, but be rest assured that you'll be out in April. So in December, when they were reading this thing, in the prison, that special quarters, you may have the TV set. So they were tuned to it, expecting clemency. It did not come. I still told them that my mind told me this clemency would not be now, it will be in April.
So 2 weeks. It's a calling.
Yes, 2 weeks.
You can say it's a calling.
It's a calling, my brother. 2 weeks prior to that, God showed me again. I wrote it and I announced it even to some of the Ambazonian guys that were in prison. I called 2 of them to be witnesses to what God showed me. And 2 weeks exactly, President Biya gave reduction on prison terms. So some of them even came and they carried me up in prison. They were calling me prophet. I said, no, calm down.
Let's talk about what is happening in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon very vividly. I'm talking about the Anglophone crisis, killings, more killings being reported every day. When you left prison and came back, I don't know if you visited the northwest and southwest regions since you left prison. Are you weeping for your regions?
Mr. Lasha, I will pull down my cap just to honor the children and women that I saw being massacred at Ngabu, because then I was still in prison. And after my release, I came out, and the incidents of Mautu in the southwest region, that's around the Muyoka neighborhood, still left me weeping. In fact, the things that are happening in the northwest and southwest region call for an urgent intervention from the actors that matter.
But is it really what the people of the northwest and southwest region bargained for? Because in the beginning we saw how, thousands of the southern Cameroonians, let's put it that way, people from the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon turned out in their numbers to support those who were championing, the call for the marginalization that some Anglophones are being marginalized, like Mancho BBC talking about bad roots in Bamenda. Is it really what the bargain for? If you have to say something regarding that, don't you think they have deviated from the original plan of what they wanted?
Mr. Lasha, I want to look at the camera and tell my brothers and sisters in the northwest and southwest region that what is happening in the northwest and southwest region cannot be what Anglophones bargained for. I want to think that the struggle for a better life for the people of the northwest and southwest region has been hijacked by some criminals, and the government is there favoring the oppression of those criminals, because we asked the government to release Ayuk Tabe. We asked the government to release Mancho BBC. We asked the government to release all those who matter, especially in connection with the Anglophone crisis, and let them sit at a table of dialogue and then see how they can put an end to this thing. If the government has been so adamant to yield to international calls, especially from partners who matter like the European Union, the African Union, the United States of America, and other like, I want to tell you that the government seems to be profiting something from the war, because I don't see why the government should be bent on winning the war. But to tell you, Mr. Lasha Kingsley, I am not the least happy with the so-called Amber boys, if they are, who decide to kill their brothers and sisters. No matter the differences, you cannot kill the same people that you think that you are going to rule. So I want to say this clearly. It's high time the two parties begin to think of arriving at a table of dialogue. And I know the decision depends on the will of the government in place. So
His Eminent Christian Cardinal Tumi, who has been fighting so hard to see that the conflict comes to an end, surprisingly released a publication recently saying that he's disappointed at what he called two evils, referring to the Ambazonia and the government of Cameroon. He thinks that the military rule is what is the best solution as at now.
Military intervention from international...
No, military rule, that the civilian rule has failed the Cameroonians.
That the military should take over?
Yeah, the military should take over in Cameroon.
That's what Cardinal Tumi
yes,
wants.
In this recent publication,
it will be taken...
Manui en Captivité, that's a recent publication.
It will be taking this country back to the ages of darkness. Because why we are struggling, especially those of us who think that Cameroon needs to embrace participatory democracy and Cardinal Tumi is telling us that they should go back to a military rule, I think he might be missing the point. Because to me, the problem with our nation is that the electoral code is not a good one. The institutions are not strong enough. Unless he's telling us that the military would take over and then put in place strong institutions.
But paradoxically, the military have been accused, the elements of our military have been accused of perpetrating some gross human rights violations.
That is the gospel.
How would the military now take over when they're the very one perpetrating such human rights violations?
I think it is, maybe it is misinterpretation. You know, out of desperation, he might have said that, because if we are thinking of the same military that shot women and children on their backs in the northern regions at close range to be the ones that we should leave the governance of this nation into their hands, I want to tell you it's a lie from the pits of hell. If we are talking of the same military that just a week ago we heard of, we found out.
But those are just allegations.
In newspaper headlines that
for the northern regions.
It happened. Listen, after Issa Chiruma said those things happen in other countries I don't want to call their names, you find that investigations showed that the killings of those women and children happened in Cameroon. We are talking of that same military. That's the kind of military that you think that we should entrust our country, full governance of our country into their dear hands. I want to tell you that it will not hold. It will plunge this country into a delicate and maybe say a horrible bloodbath.
Okay.
So what we think is right for this country, let them think of revising the electoral code. Let them think of releasing those who are in prison. Let them think of a national inclusive dialogue. Let them think of the modification of the constitution of a country. I said one time that if federalism is a problem, they should see the Anglophone regions, maybe split the Anglophone regions even into four regions, and then give them equal status like it is to other regions, so that allocated budgets can be easily given to them for a rapid development to take place in those two places.
Okay. Sir Evangelist Tifu, Silvanus Tifu,
Mutaga,
thank you so much for honoring our invitation. We are glad you are back and you are strong. We hope to have you some other time on this program. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lasha Kingsley. One message to my fellow Cameroonians: don't lose hope. Don't give up.
In their face and
don't lose hope. Don't give up. For the better days of our nation are still right ahead of us. You don't quit, especially when you are on the right path. Remember, the Bible says in the book of Galatians chapter 6, if you read down, it will tell you, don't give up doing the right thing, because if you don't give up in the right season at the appointed time, you will reap. Let us keep hoping, praying that this country remains united and a peaceful country. But then, in a nutshell, only the will of God for this nation should prevail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor having you invite me to on this very interesting platform.
Thank you.